And here is the news now on BBC One with Hugh Edwards and Matt Barbette.
An historic vote in the Israeli parliament. Thousands of Jewish settlers could be forced from their homes in Gaza. Ariel Sharon tells colleagues it's the only way to secure peace with the Palestinians. But the plan is deeply divisive, and opponents tonight are demanding a national referendum. And a short while ago, 4 of Mr. Sharon's ministers threatened to resign. Also tonight, countless tributes for broadcaster John Peel, who's died at the age of 65. Crisis at the European Commission. Will the new team be approved? And in court, Sir Mark Thatcher denies any involvement in funding an African coup.
In BBC London News, the parents of a toddler tell how he was killed by a speedboat careering onto a beach. Back on the streets by Christmas, why the number of homeless is set to soar.
Good evening. John Peel, one of Britain's most respected broadcasters, has died. He was 65. He suffered a heart attack while on holiday in Peru. For decades, John Peel championed the cause of unknown artists and new styles of music. He was at the forefront of introducing punk and reggae, among other things, to a wider British audience. Nick Hyam looks back now at John Peel's achievements.
Still sounds pretty good to me, I must say. Those are the adverts from years and years ago.
His style was laid back, laconic, lugubrious. But underneath, he was a passionate enthusiast. He loved any music that was original, surprising, challenging. CDs and demo tapes poured in from young bands who hoped he'd notice them as he'd first noticed Pink Floyd, T-Rex, the Ramones, the Smiths, the Manic Street Preachers, Oasis, the White Stripes. The Undertones' Teenage Kicks was his favourite record. The band were among scores, even hundreds, whose careers took off once John Peel championed their music on his late-night Radio 1 show.
I owe my whole career, my whole life to John Peel. I'd said it sort of flippantly in the past, but it actually does ring true that I'm fortunate in that I can point the finger at one man and go, it was his fault, and it's John Peel. And it was his fault. Without him, there would have been no Undertones.
When John Peel received a Lifetime Achievement Award from One Discovery, Jarvis Cocker of Pulp, Feargal Sharkey was there as well.
He is.
They were honouring the single most influential figure in British popular music.
Listen for me, John Ravencroft, when I have the honour of joining Bobby Davis and Kay nightly on KOMA. The
posh public schoolboy from the Wirral started in radio in America in the early 60s. The Liverpool accent and the new name came when he switched to the pirate Radio London in the North Sea. In 1967, he was one of the DJs who launched Radio 1. For years, he's been the only survivor of that original lineup. But over 37 years at the station, the 70s rebel became an institution. Even the Prime Minister paid tribute today.
He's someone who will not just be deeply missed, but I think we're all aware of the fact he was a genuine one-off and a very warm and decent human being too.
He could be difficult, but colleagues remember him fondly. A man with a dry wit, a bit like a favourite uncle, and a great broadcaster.
He used to say to me, oh, when you get on the radio, he said, you're not talking to a crowd of people, you're just talking to one person. And that's why I think everybody who listened to Peel on the radio or heard Peel on the radio, everybody today as I've been walking around, all said, you know, I felt like I knew him even though I really didn't. And it was because of his broadcasting style. When he was behind the microphone, you felt like he was talking to you and you alone.
He worked from home with a studio at his Suffolk farmhouse. A family man with a wife, 4 children and several pets. A perfect choice to present Radio 4's programme about family life, Home Truths.
It had a quirkiness, a humour, a sort of digging beneath the depths of the banality of ordinary life to get to some very, very powerful stories and some very funny stories. And it had a kind of eccentricity, has a kind of eccentricity.
Radio presenters don't often reach such different audiences. John Peel was one of the few who could.
I know I'm fabulously lucky. I mean, I do know that. Everything that I wanted when I was a kid. A job on the radio playing records that I like. And you're trying getting lots and lots of free records. And it's difficult to think what could be added to this to improve it.
John Peel, who's died at the age of 65.